You just want to fight inside your own colony. For weeks, you boxed your sisters with your antennae, biting, grappling, wrestling for a position that should have been impossible. You are a worker. Workers do not reproduce. That is the rule for almost every ant species on the planet. But you are a jumping ant, Harpignathos saltator, and in your colony, the rule breaks. Your ovaries are already expanding. Your body is building a sperm storage organ you were never born with. Your lifespan, 6 months as a worker, is about to multiply by 5. But there is a cost the colony does not warn you about. Your brain is shrinking. The optic lobes you use to navigate the world are reducing by 25%. You are gaining a kingdom. You are losing your senses. That is one rank, one price. Inside the same colony, there are workers who will die in 2 weeks. Males who exist only to mate once. Soldiers whose heads are living doors built from repurposed wing genes. And a queen who has been underground for decades. Alive on sperm she collected in a single afternoon. Every rank pays. The question is what your body was built to lose. Start at the bottom. Start before you have a body. You are laid in total darkness. One of dozens, maybe hundreds, deposited by the queen into a damp brood chamber deep inside the nest. No eyes, no legs, no antennae. You cannot move. Roughly the size of a grain of sand. And right now, nothing more than a biological blank. Your genetics are set. If the queen fertilized you with stored sperm, you are female, and your future is worker, soldier, or queen. If she didn't, you are male. No father, just the queen's choice to leave you unfertilized. That decision has already sealed your entire life. But if you are female, the next decision, the one that determines everything about the body you grow into, has nothing to do with your DNA. It comes down to food. You hatch into a soft, legless grub, blind, immobile. Nurse workers carry you, arrange you, feed you mouth to mouth. Everything you are going to become depends on what they bring you. A hormone called juvenile hormone surges during a critical developmental window. More food, more hormone, larger body, queen potential organs. Less food, lower hormone levels, smaller frame, worker. You do not choose. The colony chooses for you, based on what the colony needs, not what you need. In fire ant colonies, Solenopsis invicta, the queen or workers produce special eggs that are never meant to hatch. Pure nutrition. Food parcels laid specifically to feed larvae. The queen lays eggs to make workers, and she lays eggs to feed them. Some of her offspring are children, some are meals. And if the colony's ratios go wrong, too many larvae of one type, not enough of another, the nurses do not wait. In pharaoh ant colonies, Monomorium pharaonis, workers have been documented culling specific larvae to reset the population balance, eating the ones the colony does not need. You are not an individual, you are an investment. And if the colony's budget changes, you are expendable. You pupate. In some species, you spin a silk cocoon around yourself. In others, you lie naked in the brood chamber. Either way, when you emerge as an adult, your caste is locked. Your body has been built. What were you fed? That decides everything that comes next. If you were fed enough, you emerge with wings, larger than every worker in the colony. Your abdomen is built to produce eggs, thousands of them, eventually millions over a lifetime. But right now, you have done nothing. You are an L8, a winged virgin queen, waiting for a signal. The signal comes on a warm, humid day. You climb to the surface alongside hundreds of winged males from your own colony and others nearby. The nuptial flight, the only time in your life you will ever leave the ground. You mate in the air, maybe with one male, maybe with several. Their sperm enters a storage organ inside your body called the spermatheca, a biological vault that will keep that sperm alive and functional for the rest of your life. One afternoon, every offspring you will ever produce for the next 10, 20, maybe 30 years will come from the sperm you collected today. Then you land. You bite your own wings off at the fracture points, predetermined weak spots called basal sutures, engineered to break. You dig into the earth and seal yourself inside. This is claustral colony founding. You are alone. No workers to feed you, no foragers to find food. Your body begins metabolizing the massive flight muscles that powered your wings, dissolving protein into energy, feeding yourself on structures you will never use again. Your first eggs are tiny. Some are trophic eggs, food for the larvae that hatch from the others. Weeks pass, maybe months. You wait in absolute darkness, burning your own body to keep your first daughters alive. When those first workers finally emerge, small, fragile, fewer than a dozen, the founding phase is over. They take over feeding. They take over digging. They take over everything. You will never leave this nest again. Your job, for the rest of your life, is to lay eggs. You are not a ruler. You do not give orders. Workers decide where to forage, how to build, when to fight, based on chemical signals and colony need. You are the reproductive center of a system that runs itself. And unlike almost everything else in the colony, your body does not wear out the way a worker's does. In some species, queens produce more eggs as they age, not fewer. The cost of reproduction rule that applies to most animals breaks in ant queens. One Lasius niger queen survived nearly 30 years in a laboratory, the longest authenticated lifespan of any insect colony member. One queen, decades of eggs, an entire civilization, built from the muscles she dissolved and the sperm she stored, on a single afternoon. But you are trapped here, and the colony does not serve you, you serve. If you were not fed enough to become a queen, you emerge as a worker, female. Sterile in most species, your ovaries are reduced or suppressed. You will never reproduce. The colony did not build you for that. Your first job is nursing. You are the youngest workers in the nest, and the colony keeps you deep inside, close to the brood, far from danger. You carry eggs. You move larvae. You feed them mouth to mouth, regurgitating processed food directly into their bodies. You tend the queen, grooming her, feeding her, removing waste. You have never seen sunlight. You have never left the nest. Your entire world is a network of dark chambers, and your purpose is to keep the next generation alive. This is temporal polyethism, though no ant calls it anything. The youngest workers handle brood care. The oldest workers get the dangerous jobs. The colony invests in the young and spends the old. You simply age, and your body shifts, and one day the signals around you change, and you move on. Not every colony builds you, but in the big-headed ants, Phytol, one of the most species-rich genera on Earth with over 1,100 described species, the colony produces two distinct worker types from the same queen. Minor workers are small. They forage, they nurse, they maintain the nest. Generalists. You are a major worker, a soldier. Your head is enormous relative to your body. It houses mandible muscles powerful enough to crack seeds and crush intruders. In some Phytol species, your job is not just fighting, it is blocking. You wedge your disproportionately massive head into a nest entrance tunnel when army ant raids approach. You become a living door. Army ant scouts touch your head, sense the obstruction, and retreat. But here is the part that changes what you sell. The genetic blueprint for building a supersoldier is not unique to the species that produce them. Ehab Abu Heif's lab at McGill University showed that the code exists, dormant, silenced, in all Phytol species. Every big-headed ant colony on the planet carries the instruction manual for a caste it may never build. Scientists injected a juvenile hormone analog into larvae of Phytol species that have never naturally produced supersoldiers. Not in millions of years of evolution. Supersoldiers appeared. The program was never lost. It was just turned off. The colony has weapons. It does not know it has. And the mechanism that builds those supersoldiers borrows from an even older system. Supersoldier larvae develop transient rudimentary wing discs, vestigial structures from ancestors that could fly. Evolution did not invent the soldier from scratch. It repurposed flight equipment for war. Your head is a weapon, and it was built with spare parts from wings. In leafcutter ants, atacephalotes, the system goes further. Workers come in many distinct size classes, each specialized for a different task. Tiny garden tenders cultivate fungus deep inside the nest. Medium workers cut and carry leaves. Large soldiers defend the trails. The same queen produces all of them. Shaped by nutrition, builds an entire army, with division of labor written into body size. You were not promoted to soldier. You were manufactured. Between nursing and foraging, there is a middle zone. You are no longer the youngest, not yet old enough to be sent outside. You dig tunnels. You move soil. You repair chambers after rain floods the upper galleries. You carry dead nestmates to the midden, the colony's refuse pile. You manage the infrastructure that keeps the colony from collapsing. Not dramatic, but this is where most workers spend the longest stretch of their lives. You respond to chemical signals, colony-specific cuticular hydrocarbons that coat every member of your nest. A chemical passport. When you touch another ant with your antennae, you are reading her identity. If she smells right, she belongs. If she does not, she is an intruder, and the colony attacks. Your own chemical profile is shifting as you age. The hydrocarbons on your cuticle change as your body transitions between roles. The colony can read what job you do by how you smell. You are not anonymous. You are labeled. And somewhere in this middle phase, a signal begins pulling you toward the exit. You cross the threshold. For the first time in your life, you leave the nest. Sunlight, open ground, wind, predators, heat that can kill you in minutes if you are a desert species. This is foraging. In most species, it is the final role a worker ever holds. In Pogonomyrmex barbatus, the red harvester ant, studied for decades by Stanford's Deborah Gordon, foragers average roughly 14 days alive after they begin fieldwork. 2 weeks, not a lifespan, a countdown. In Cataglyphus desert ants, it is worse. Forager half-life in the Saharan species is 4 to 6 days. By the end of a single week, more than half the foragers that left the nest are dead. Predation, desiccation, heat. The desert does not negotiate. You find food, you lay a chemical trail, pheromone compounds deposited onto the ground as you walk. Other foragers detect the trail, follow it, reinforce it. The shortest path gets the most reinforcement. The longest paths fade. No one planned this. No one calculated the route. The trail is a distributed intelligence, written in volatile chemistry, and it solves optimization problems that human engineers study. When the food runs out, the trail evaporates. The colony does not need a signal to call it off. The chemistry has a half-life. The colony forgets automatically. The trail disappears when the food does. You are out here because the colony needs food more than it needs you safe. If foragers are killed in large numbers, the colony responds. Young nurses deep in the nest precociously shift to foraging regardless of their age. The chemical feedback changed. The system fills the gap. And in rare cases, the system works in reverse. If brood demand surges and nurses are scarce, older foragers have been documented reverting to nursing. The life trajectory reverses. The death sentence pauses. But for most foragers, this is the end. You were built to be spent. The colony kept you safe when you were young and useful inside. Now you are old, and the colony sends you where the risk is. You carry food for larvae you will never become. You maintain trails you will not survive long enough to walk twice. That is the job. You die. Maybe heat. Maybe a predator. Maybe your body simply wore out. Joints locking, cuticle cracking, muscles failing after weeks of carrying loads heavier than your own weight. But the colony knows, before you have stopped moving. Every living ant broadcasts a chemical signal through compounds on its cuticle, life chemicals. In Argentine ants, Linepithema humili. These include dolichodial and iridomyrmecin. As long as you are alive, these molecules replenish. The moment you die, they stop. The silence is immediate. Other workers detect 2 things: the absence of your life signal and the accumulation of oleic acid, a fatty acid that builds up in dead tissue. The combination triggers necrophoresis. A nestmate picks up your body and carries it to the midden pile, the colony's waste heap, away from the brood, away from the queen. You are not mourned. You are processed. E.O. Wilson demonstrated this with a single experiment. He coated a living, healthy ant in oleic acid, the chemical of death. Her nestmates immediately picked her up and carried her to the midden. She was alive. She struggled. She climbed back into the nest. They carried her out, again. She was chemically dead, while biologically alive. The colony does not check for a heartbeat. It reads the chemistry. And when the chemistry says you are gone, you are gone. You are different from everyone else in this colony. You hatched from an unfertilized egg. No father, only the queen, who chose not to add sperm when she laid you. Every worker, every soldier, every queen in this colony carries 2 sets of chromosomes. You carry 1, built from half the blueprint. And you are built for one thing. You do not forage. You do not nurse. You do not dig, carry, fight, or maintain. Workers feed you. Workers groom you. You sit inside the nest, consuming resources, contributing sember nothing to the colony's operation. Your mandibles are wrong for work. Your body is wrong for work. Your behavior is wrong for work. You exist to carry the queen's genes porch outside this colony. When the nuptial flight comes, that same warm, humid signal that launches virgin queens into the air, You fly. You find a queen from another colony. You mate. And then, in most species, you are done. He was born from nothing. There was no father. Male ants die within days to weeks after mating. In some species, internal reproductive structures rupture during copulation. You do not return to the colony. You do not transition to a new role. Your biological purpose has been fulfilled, and your body was not built to survive past it. Workers that once fed you will, in some colonies, stop feeding males that linger too long, or physically drive them out before nuptial flight season. Tolerated when useful, expelled when the window closes. But this is not universal. In Cardiocondyla ants, some species produce wingless males, ergatoid males, that stay inside the nest permanently, mate multiple times, and fight rival males to the death in the tunnels. These males live longer, but frequent mating shortens even their lifespan. Every male pays. The currency is just different. In most species, your caste is locked the moment you emerge from your pupa. Worker stays worker. Queen stays queen. The system is fixed, but not in Harpygnathos saltator, the Indian jumping ant. When the colony's founding queen dies or grows too old to reproduce, something happens that should not be possible. Workers fight, not to the death. Ritualized dominance contests, antennal boxing, grappling, biting. The fights last for weeks. Dozens of workers compete. The winners undergo a transformation that breaks the rules of this entire system. Their ovaries expand. They develop a functional spermatheca, the same sperm storage organ that defines a queen. They mate. They begin laying fertilized eggs. They become Gamergates, workers who have gained queen-level reproductive power without ever being born as queens. But the promotion is not free. Research from NC State University documented what happens inside a Gamergate's body after the transition. Her ovaries grow, her lifespan multiplies. Gamergates in Harpygnathos can live for several years, compared to roughly 6 months for ordinary workers. Same body, same genetics. Reproductive status alone extends the clock, and her brain shrinks. The optic lobes, the regions she used to navigate the world as a foraging worker, reduce by up to 25%. The body reprioritizes. Reproduction takes resources. Sensory processing loses them. She gained a kingdom, she lost her senses. And in other species, the enforcement is harsher. In Diacama ants, the dominant Gamergate does not simply win power. She physically mutilates her rivals. When a new worker emerges from her pupa, the Gamergate approaches and removes the newly eclosed worker's gemmae, vestigial wing buds on the thorax. Without those structures, the young worker can never steed, never develop reproductive capacity. The Gamergate does not just hold power, she edits her sisters' bodies to make sure no one else can take it. Pull back. Every rank you have lived through, egg, larva, queen, nurse, soldier, maintainer, forager, dead worker, male, Gamergate, is a component in a system with NO central command. The queen does not give orders. She lays eggs. Workers do not receive instructions. They respond to pheromones, to colony need, to the age of their own bodies. Trail pheromones solve routing problems. Alarm pheromones trigger defensive cascades. Cuticular hydrocarbons identify friend from enemy. Death chemicals trigger body removal. No ant knows the colony's plan. The colony does not have a plan. It has chemistry, and the chemistry runs the system. When the colony reaches maturity, enough workers, enough food, enough stability, it enters its reproductive phase. The queen begins producing new allotate queens and males. In Solenopsis invicta fire ant colonies, this can happen within 6 months. In Lasius niger, it may take years. Those new queens fly. Those new males fly. Some queens survive. Most do not. The ones that land tear off their wings, dig into the earth, and seal themselves into darkness. They start the cycle again. One queen, one flight, one chamber, decades. You lived every rank. The egg that had no say in what it would become. The larva whose future was decided by how much food a nurse carried to its mouth. The queen who dissolved her own flight muscles to feed children she had never met. The nurse who spent her youth in darkness, tending siblings she would never outlive. The soldier whose head was a weapon, built from repurposed wing genes. The forager who lasted 14 days in the field. The dead worker, whose body was carried out the moment her chemistry went silent. The male who existed to mate once and disappear. The Gamergate who won a throne and paid for it. with 25% of her brain. Same colony, same queen, same genetics. But the body you were given is the life you get, and no rank in this system escapes the cost. The colony does not care which rank you hold. It built you for a function. When that function is done, you are done. And somewhere beneath the ground, in a chamber no larger than a fingernail, a queen is still laying eggs. Still using sperm she collected on an afternoon decades ago. Still feeding a system that will outlive every individual inside it. She will not stop until her body stops. None of them will.